Hey guys, we are at a sunny St George's Park here in Port Elizabeth on the eve of the third test between South Africa and England. I'm with Netwerk's 24's Tinus van Staden, arguably the most prolific cricket writer on the tour, I think it's fair to say. He'll disagree, but I promise you it's true. Tinus, so we just heard from Faf du Plessis. He kind of toyed with the idea of dropping the spinner, he toyed with the idea of playing an extra batter, he toyed with the idea of playing an extra bowler. Does that point to a captain who doesn't know what his best team is? Is he getting confused by the pitch? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think that I don't know if he does know what his best team is at the moment. They just started obviously under Mark Boucher, and now Dane Patterson's he's in the picture now. So I think Faf really wants to get the best out of the pitch here, out of the conditions. They say that it might be a bowling day. As they say on Thursday, with the wind coming over the scoreboard there, and then it sounds like Friday might be a batsman's day with the wind coming from the other direction. So it would be a bowl first pitch, and you might also see a bit of reverse swing later on in the test. And I don't know if he feels that Dane Patterson might be someone that to give him a bit of reverse swing, and if he's suited to these conditions. The question is, who do you leave out? I can't see them leaving out a spinner in Port Elizabeth, where it's a bit slower, and I mean Keshav's also an important player for the Proteas. The other option is either leaving out Dwayne Pretorius or Vernon Philander, which would all obviously weaken your batting lineup. So. But he also said that he'd like to keep the team the same, but those are the types of options that they are thinking about.
I guess that's inevitable when you suffer a 189-run defeat. So I guess that always makes you second guess yourself. But just a word on this ground. I mean, it's a gorgeous place. This is the first time, this is the venue where South Africa played their first ever Test match in 1889. I think I'm correct in saying, against England. Cricket obsesses about the weather, maybe more than any other sport, probably because we're, slaves to the weather. But I've yet to be at a ground where the direction of the wind is so prominent. We talk about the mountain in Cape Town, we talk about the humidity in Durban. Here, it's all about the wind. I mean, what's your take on it?
Well, I'm not sure if it plays such a big part.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a bit myth and legend, but I mean, Anrich Nortje, who plays for the Warriors here, he grew up here playing his cricket here. He also said the other day that sometimes he can see it swinging a bit more, and he also said that the wind isn't the only thing that has an effect on swing. So I'm not sure how big an effect, but I mean, people that are much smarter than me, they say that it does have an effect. So probably it does have a bit of an effect. What I do know is that we've seen reverse swing a lot in the last few years. Yeah, I remember that test 2018 against Australia here, where there was a lot of reverse swing. So I mean, there's how much of that is down to the wind. I'm not sure, but the ground does tend to have a bit of reverse swing.
You asked Faf a really good question in the press box, or rather in the presser. You touched on the social media storm, really. I mean, as you can call it that. If it's a storm, it's all exaggerated, right? It's all smoke and mirrors on social media. But people have been comparing his numbers to Tim Bavuma's numbers, at least for the last 7 or 8 innings. He batted that pretty well, maybe better than he's been doing it in the middle. And he said that you can't really take it too seriously, especially when you're playing cricket for this long. But what's been your take on the social media kind of Ferrari? It seems like the people outside have a lot more to say about this than people on the inside. We spoke to Enoch Nkwe yesterday, who was very eloquent on the racial makeup of the side. What's been your take in your writing?
Well, you have to understand the context in which this is happening. The context of South Africa, that really they are desperate for a first Black African batsman to excel in Test cricket. And I mean, if you take into account the history of the country, it's very important. And I mean, everybody wants to see transformation happening. And I think Temba Bavuma has sort of become the face of transformation, if I can say it like that. So every time he bats, he bats for a lot of children in the townships that are also that wants to believe that they can also one day bat for the Proteas. So inevitably, if he gets dropped, then there will be a lot of people that's unhappy with it. Cricket, in cricket terms, he doesn't really have you can't really make a strong case for him. I mean, he's played 39 tests, averaging 31 with 1 ton and I think 13 50s. I know the strange thing is, I mean, Enoch also said it the other day that he's been unlucky.
Yes.
You can't deny that he's been unlucky a few times, but I mean, an average of 31 over 39 tests. You have a lot of time to, bump those numbers up. And cricket's a numbers game,
Yeah.
and now the comparisons start to come in about Faf, but his critics are very clever in cherry picking the last 13 innings that he's played and saying that, and that's true, has been poor. But I mean, if you take the whole 2019 and compare those numbers, then Temba has averaged around 20, with Faf averaging 40 or something. And I mean, Faf scored. How many hundreds has he scored for South Africa? He saved 3 tests for the Proteas. He's a captain. I mean, he's a class above Temba, if you have to be honest. And I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. So it's very strange to hear people then ask for Faf to be dropped. But you can understand that there are people angry with the way with Temba being dropped. I would rather compare Temba with Tinus the Brain.
Yes.
And I mean, Tinus has also been dropped.
Yes.
And he scored a century in 2017 in Sri Lanka in very difficult circumstances. Granted that Temba also played brilliantly in that test, but I mean he probably has also a lot of reason to feel a bit aggrieved. But he would also know that his numbers hasn't backed up his potential.
Yeah, yeah. And just a final word on just come a little closer to me. Just a final word on Faf's on Faf's captaincy. A lot of people have been criticising the way he's maybe handled Keshav, the erratic nature of his fielding positions. We just touched on his team selections. Do you kind of think that a bit more clarity, a bit more direction is needed? Look, I don't know what it's like to captain a test team, but just a bit more direction, I think.
I think the problem with the bowling and the plans came in the third innings in Cape Town.
Yeah.
So England's second innings, where you could say it was a bit erratic, but where they had Keshav bowling with no apparent, clever plan to get them out, except for hoping that Ben Stokes makes a mistake almost. But I mean, they did have a clear plan, and Mark Boucher also spoke about. They thought that Stokes might take on Keshav, and Keshav has had a bit of success against Stokes. So
He got him out in Centurion.
Yes, he got him out in Centurion. Sometimes plans just they don't work, and then you look silly from. But I mean, if it had worked, then we obviously wouldn't have had this conversation. But I mean, it's still probably good to question why Faf, if Faf has clarity of thought. I think he does. I think his bowlers has backed him up more times than not, also in this series. So I think, Faf is an experienced captain. He's a good captain. I think tactically he's also a good captain. Sometimes his plans doesn't always seem very, very astute, but I do think that he knows what he's doing. So yeah.
No, I agree. I'm in Faf's corner. I think we're both Team Faf, and it is going to be a cracking game. We can't wait. We'll see you tomorrow.